Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Excellence, the most important hour of your week. Hello, I'm Michael, the MC and Opportunity Ambassador for today's show. And today's show's title is Could Alcohol Be Your Healer? With me today are some of my favorite co hosts, as well as a very special guest. And we'll start with Agnieszka, our psychosomatic illuminator, and her guest, Jack.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here. I have brought with me Jack, who is a real wizard, and he also is an alchemist when it comes to alcohol and healing beers. So we're going to learn from Jack today how we can use alcohol for our better health.
And our favorite freedom facilitator, Dennis.
Greetings and blessed love. Great to be with you.
We didn't really let Jack say hello, so maybe we should.
Okay. Go ahead, Jack.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, so let's just go to you guys. Let's talk about alcohol.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Do it.
Okay.
Talk about the Beer Act.
Talk about the.
Well, I tell you what. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background and why you have such an experience and education with this.
Okay, yeah. So I'll just start off with the story then. Whereas around this subject, like I grew up in an environment, sort of culture that very liberally and heavily uses cannabis, and is at the same time opposed to alcohol, and saw alcohol as like sort of a portal into humanity's lower nature, as well as physically detrimental to our health. And that's West Coast, rural West Coast is where I came up. And so, I believe that as well. I didn't do much drinking. And then when I was 18, graduated high school, took myself out to Europe, and really was looking into my roots and going with an open mind just to learn more about myself, because for a long time I've been disillusioned with the quality of people produced in the United States, and saw the tradition as a window into just a deeper, more realized type of person. Like Europeans have this tradition that allows them to just be more developed people, like playing more instruments, speaking more languages, being in more countries around the world, and just less overall ignorant as most folks in the United States have a tendency to be, more worldly, more like educated and that sort of thing.
I think it's easier in Europe because there are so many diverse people all around Europe, and so you're exposed to them, whether you like it or not. But the United States was sort of curated to be dumbed down.
Yeah, I mean, we also are building a tradition, right? Our country's like a couple hundred years old, and so
we're the greatest. What do you mean? We're the greatest.
Yeah, I mean, there's things I can appreciate about the country as well, and so, but yeah, I was just drawn to the tradition and had a really open mind, therefore, and so I went to Europe. I got certified to teach English. Hated that. Just went playing music and touring Europe until I reached Spain, and that's when fun stuff started to happen. I was completely out of money, so I started doing HelpX. And I found myself on this farm in this 500-year-old village of 50 people, like a year-round residence. There were other people who had like summer houses there or whatever, but that was like the actual population who lived there. And my boss was making wine. We did a lot of other things as well, like tending orchards and growing gardens and that sort of thing. But he was also making wine, and his thing was that he had studied the traditional winemaking process, and so he would supply like generally old folks just out in the countryside who couldn't find the same quality of wine that they were used to in major stores. And so he was selling like the specialty wine, and so I lived there with him, and I was a dude who he would send down to the cellar to be getting more wine all night. And he said, don't you dare come back up here without taking a sip from the Boron, which is like this it's this like Aragonese like vase that has this like it's like a vase with a spout coming off it, and so you grab it and shoot it into your mouth, and you got a bigger dick for how far away you can you can shoot it into your mouth. So same with wineskins, we're like shooting it from as far away as we can. Lots of wine stained shirts from that part of my voyage. But yeah, so it was just essentially a blast, and like we would take it. My boss was actually a lot more conservative with alcohol than the other guys, because we would go and help out some other landowners, some older folks, and they would bring 2 wineskins. We only brought 1 to the field with us. So when 11 o'clock rolled around and we were working in the heat, we would just toss this bota around and keep drinking, and then get together at night, and all the villagers would just be at the bar. And that's really how I learned to speak Spanish. Was a little bit of high school Spanish, and just talking and drinking and learning the stories of these people. And so alcohol was like what united their culture. And I realized that the demonization and the mentality that I grew up in, that alcohol was this evil thing, and it has no value, and it's like inherently destructive and all that. I realized that it was the culture around alcohol and not alcohol itself, because there's people who drink habitually, who were in their 80s and would drink in the morning and drink at night, and they're still out there like hoeing their fields or their gardens like I was. And there's like people who are 40 that I grew up around who like can hardly move, and they think alcohol is evil and don't touch it at all. So it really challenged my perception and redefined my relationship with this. And then I got back into the States and found this book called Sacred Herbal Healing Beers. And that was a really cool one. And it details, in the beginning, like most of the book is written about mankind's relationship with alcohol. And it essentially puts down the premise that alcohol is the most widespread and the oldest plant medicine known to man. Like that, maybe with the exception of Australian Aborigines, like there's at least ritual use of alcohol documented on every other continent in the planet. Even some Native American tribes were using it like just once a year for a harvest ritual, but like it was still there, and it was still present. And so
it's also documented to have been used by animals.
Alcohol, chimpanzees, yeah.
They'll find the rotten fruit to get drunk.
Absolutely, yeah. So then that really started shifting my mind, and it was interesting. And then I learned about another thing we'll do some talking about, which is the European tradition with alcohol, and how it used to be more of like an extract for certain herbs, like the Picts, right, resisting Roman aggression and invasion, and like the Picts held off the Romans.
The berserker drink, the berserker juice.
No, this is different. That's like Vikings and Scandinavians, but this is like Hadrian's Wall.
Mm-hmm.
He only made it that far into England, or whatever the right word for it is, UK or whatever, and then was held off by the tribes to the north, and that's like credited to this drink that they had, the heather ale, right?
No ale.
Yeah, it didn't have hops in it, because the thing was that it would make the men better fighters, more aggressive, and put them into their body. So the traditional or the classic beer that's all full of hops and damaging to your hormonal system and fakes estrogen in your body and makes you more effeminate. It was sort of the opposite of that.
So why do they put hops in beer? Like, what do the hops do?
So the hops mimic estrogen in our body.
But no, for the people that want it in there, what do the hops do?
So it's relaxing, anti-inflammatory, will cause you down, will ease stress. So you can find hops in like some bedtime teas and that sort of thing. It's good for relieving inflammation, and so it does have some value in that way, but it's also really powerful. It's like up there with soy.
So you wouldn't want to eat it every day.
Right, you wouldn't want to eat it every day. You wouldn't want to drink it in beer every day. And as a young man, I avoid that, because the really hoppy beers, like in the Czech Republic, like I noticed that in my body, and I did not like the effects. Like slower mind, slower body, not as aggressive or passionate about life, and not as much fun to spend time with ladies. And so that's a funny thing is like in every men's bathroom in the Czech Republic, they sell condoms and like knockoff Viagra in every single bathroom because of how hoppy their beers are. Never seen it in another country, but
Interesting. I've never seen it at all, but no, who knows?
yeah, men's
It's
bathrooms.
all good information. All valuable information.
So when hops started becoming a major thing, because you touched on this, was at least in Germany in 1516, I believe it was. It was the 1500s, somewhere between before 1500, and it was actually made law that the crown could confiscate. I believe it was the crown, but the authority, whoever, could confiscate your beer if you were making it with anything other than barley, I believe it was, hops, and water. And the yeast was taken from the air, so that wasn't originally counted. But barley, hops, and water. So there used to be sort of like the digestives that still exist in Europe today, like Underberg and things like that, with all kinds of different bitters.
Jagermeister.
Jägermeister, yeah, that have a lot of things for your digestion and that'll purify your blood and like medicinals. It was made just to be hops, so you would still have that bitter taste, only instead of having it be digestive and having it be purifying or whatever, it's just
Stupefying.
it's stupefying. Yeah. I mean, it's population control. Like how many bar fights do you see Czechs getting into? They drink some hoppy beer. Like Irish whiskey has a different effect
No bar fights.
on whiskey.
Yeah.
Lots of bar fights. Yes,
Yeah.
Serge. Yes. Yeah, I can definitely testify to that one. Whiskey, lots of fights.
Yeah, whiskey leads to fights. If people are drinking super hoppy Czech beers, you're fine. You're
So,
cool. Prague's the safest city in Europe.
so how can we what can we do to make beer that is healthy for us or beneficial for our health?
Well, that's a really
Because
cool.
it's also full of vitamin B and stuff, right?
For sure, yeah. And so that's a really cool thing about fermentation and alcoholic fermentation, because a lot of things will be naturally alcoholic. Like kombucha can have up to like it can get high. It can get like wine or even like vermouth status.
Really?
Like
If you leave it for
12%.
like 12 years or something?
Yeah, there's ways to do it, and like I've seen hard kombuchas, and so I don't know, maybe it won't do that naturally, but I know it gets fairly high naturally, like probably enough for you to feel it. But you can ferment, your own wine and your own
Out of all sorts
beer.
of fruits, not just grapes.
Exactly, yeah. So essentially, it's just a really simple process where you do some environmental or temperature control, but very minor, and essentially you just get the culture, the sugar, whatever it's going to be feeding them, and like your
Fruit. Whatever fruit. In Poland, they even make wine out of rose hips.
yeah, for sure. So like that's where it gets really interesting, is it's up to you and really what you can think up, what you can create. And there's a ton of really medicinal things that you can create, like dandelion wine, and how all the benefits of dandelion, and you could put anything that would taste good in that, like maybe some burdock and
Does burdock taste
chicory.
good?
It would make it like a really earthly kind of thing. Like if you take all those like really earthly, like bitter roots,
Yeah.
probably wouldn't make that wine, but that might make a good beer. Rose wine. Rose has a lot of powerful benefits, like
Oh, it would be nice if you made really light beer with rose in it. Maybe a touch of vanilla.
yeah,
Like it's maybe a cider.
a cider. Hell yeah, that would be great. But yeah, so it's like the sky's the limit with fermentation, and that's one of the really cool things with it. And same thing with alcoholic fermentation as well. And alcohol is really good at extracting certain properties.
So are there
from the
certain
plants.
herbs that are more better to use with alcohol than others? Or can you just experiment with whatever?
I would experiment. I don't have the answer to that, but I'm sure that some react better to alcohol than others.
Do you guys have any questions? I've been asking all sorts.
Well, what kind of equipment do you need to bring this about? Is it some stuff that you've got in your kitchen, or is it things like you got to buy some new stuff to create beer for yourself?
I mean, you probably want to buy a couple of things, but it's all stuff that you could find. I mean, you probably want to get like big enough containers made out of glass, but I mean, like I guess a paint bucket would do. But it's really like,
I was thinking one of those Mexican crocks with a lid on it, like one of those ceramic ones.
yeah, yeah, and it depends on what you're doing as well. Like I'm not any kind of expert in distilling. Um,
That's not the same thing.
No.
Brewing and distilling.
no, it's not. But you can still do some really cool stuff with more powerful
Yes.
alcohols distilling them. But yeah, just like making beers and wines and that sort of thing. You just like make an herbal elixir. Like you find a good recipe or a good combination. Like maybe you like it as a tea. Like one for me would be like rose, cacao, honey, maca, ginseng. I like might put all that together and then just like get all that together in a nice tea and then put some sugar source in there to ferment it, like maybe a bunch of honey, or you could use sugar, but that's
Not that good for you. What
yeah,
about Piloncillo?
it's kind of like it's kind of
Piloncillo has all the vitamins and stuff.
sure you could do that, or what else? Fruit or um, what's the word for it? You could put barley in there after it's like activated.
Malt.
Malted barley. So you could do all sorts of things, and they all have different properties and all do different things for your body. So yeah, it really is like an alchemical process, and it's really cool, honestly. Like eating your own ferments and like drinking some like concoction, like some herbal concoction that you made is like it's an experience for sure. It's something that you could call me an enthusiast about it. Don't do it as much as I should, but
Nice.
or as much as I could, but yeah, no, all of that's really fun and it's good for you too if you get serious about it, like just like fermentation, like I think that things like bread making, family recipes, fermentation, alcohol production are all pretty cool things that
This,
connect
this might
us.
this
Make
might
it-
have some, but I actually had a conversation with Julio from the Free Knots, and he's a bit of a beer connoisseur and knows a few different beer meisters, I guess, which were brewmeisters. And we were talking about, starting like a microbrewery here in Acapulco and what that might take. And, with all the destruction of restaurants and, facilities in America due to the lockdowns and, the bankrupting of all these companies, there's a lot of, like microbrewery type equipment in the United States that's probably going to be sold for 20-30 cents on the dollar. And why not bring that kind of stuff to a place like Acapulco and start brewing our own beer?
I don't know.
Plus, with all the
brewery
with all-
equipment is mostly just like glass and stuff, unless you're looking at big, huge vats.
yeah
well, I'm
Maybe-
talking like a microbrew like a normal restaurant might have, or a large restaurant might have.
Right. You could definitely make that yourself without too much trouble, but I like the way that you're thinking. I mean, I would definitely like, I'm thinking about moving to Mexico, so maybe I'll come back down here just like with a truck and just a ton of brewing equipment, like, strapped down to it and just
All right, there
by
we
the
go.
road with hop-free beers, just like put all
Nice.
kinds of fun things in there, and all of a sudden all the dudes will start getting like really masculine and their voices will deepen, and
That could be a big attraction for a lot of people. How about you, Dennis? What do you got?
Well, I'm in the heart of the beer brewing country, yet I have no personal experience with it whatsoever. Yet. What
Yes. Oh, if there was a healing beer, you'd drink it, wouldn't you?
sounds like a challenge.
I don't know. I learned that would, could, and should don't exist, so we have to wait until the moment appears and then see what happens. But yeah, like well, the little bit I know is that we call it it's called Reinheitsgesetz here, which is Reinheit is like purity law, which is the one
Yep.
that you touched upon earlier, and and I think there were different interests at the time for bringing that into play. You touched upon some already, and then I think we have something here called Weissbier or white beer, like Weizenbier, also, which is the wheat, right? Like beer made from wheat, and
Is there any way you could make yourself a little louder, Dennis?
oh, hold on, let me try push this closer. Is this better?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Sorry. So we have wheat beer or Weizenbier, it's called in German, and it seems that just around the time when the purity, how do you call it again? The law was put in place.
Purity Act.
Yeah,
Purity
the
Act.
Beer Purity Act. You're the one who knows the name for it. That's all.
Yeah, Reinheitsgesetz. Then so that law in at least in Bavaria, it seems that granted authority or like a monopoly of brewing this wheat beer to I forgot the name of the guys. It's some lord. It's not lords in German. It's like it's a family basically that run things here, and they were granted the monopoly over brewing that kind of beer alone. So they had an economic interest in pushing through this law as well, because it granted them the monopoly over that. And then it seems that through the centuries that kind of law actually was more or less forgotten, but then it was kind of revived after the First World War, like in 1918, and then basically Bavaria was making it a condition of basically, no, that was earlier, of joining Germany, the rest of Germany, when they were coming together. That was before the First World War anyway. But they made it a condition for Bavaria to join the other states, which were just loosely connected before, to adopt this law for all of Germany. And their mindset was that would give German beer like a status that would not be matched by other beers from around the world. So they wanted basically a monopoly or like a specialty beer for standard for the whole of Germany, so they could market it worldwide as something special. But then of course I think by now it is like it's big industrial production as well, so there's nothing much left of that original special way of brewing it. And of course until today you can't use any but those 4 ingredients that you pointed out earlier to brew beer, at least here in Bavaria and in Germany. I think in general it is, yeah. So that's super interesting, because there's this market for, is it called craft beer in the English speaking world, where you have all kind of different ways of brewing beer. But if you do something like that here, you cannot market it as beer. You would have to call it something else. Otherwise, they would come after you.
So it's still in effect, this act.
Yeah, definitely. And the people who speak for it, or like reasons for it, they were saying, that back in the days, basically anybody could just put together anything, and beer was basically consumed back then more than water, because it was actually safer than water because of the heating process. So it would kill off bacteria or germs, and it would be safer to drink beer on one way, but on the other way, people put all kind of things in there, so you could also die from it. But yeah, that's something I read, but obviously it wasn't there. And so they were claiming that it will make it much safer for people to drink it after we standardize it. But then again, you have the economic interests which actually contradict that. So it was, I guess, money and other interests like the one you pointed out of controlling people, controlling their behavior as well, that played a role.
Yeah, that was a point of me bringing that up is it's really interesting to me that there was actually like legislation in place to kind of destroy the tradition. Like down here in Mexico, there's no one who tells you how to make agua fresca or like whatever the vendors are serving. Everyone kind of has
actually
their own recipe, right?
The agua fresca has also been fucked with.
Well, yeah, for
Because
sure. It's using bad ingredients.
It used to be, and I've made real aqua frescas for the party, and it's sweet and it tastes good. And I just put some melon and some cucumber and blend it up with some water, and that's aqua fresca. But what they're doing on the street is they're adding like fake cucumber flavor and sugar, lots and lots of sugar. And it doesn't taste better with the sugar.
It doesn't. But the thing is, everyone has their own way of making it down here. And so it's interesting to think that it would be like the government mandating that there's a certain amount of sugar around. And then people being like, agua fresca is poison. And then I'm like, wait, it doesn't have to be this way. It was actually cool.
I think in the 40s and 50s, the government did encourage people to use sugar in things. And that's why there's so much sugar in a lot of recipes all over North America, not just Mexico, but
Yeah.
Canada and the United States as well.
Something I was really pondering about, especially under current circumstances and conditions, and I came across it's a scientist, like a brain researcher, who's pretty famous right now, who's speaking up for children and for the way we learn, and for the way the whole mask order thing and the lockdown measurements especially impact children and their brain functions and what it does to children psychologically. And he was mentioning that there was some interesting research going on which tries to find out how this kind of special obedience within Germans, which seems to really be a thing where, and I don't know the English word exactly, it's like if you're obedient without yet being asked to be obedient. So it's like a
like how all your trains are on time and buses and stuff.
Yeah, part of that as well, like this whole thing that
obedience.
How you said?
Hey, I'm gonna go get a glass of water. Do you want a glass of water?
Yeah, I'll take a glass of water.
No, it's like before you even get the order, you already I'm right here. I do it, like obey and do what you're supposed to do without even being told to do so. And that's something like I see it around me right here right now, where people just jump into place and jump as high as they're supposed to jump before they're even told to jump. And like Germans have been admired for their organization and for their discipline and all of that, but of course it always has two sides. And what I found really interesting was this notion that it had to do something with a collective trauma that goes way back to the how you call it? We call it Dreißigjähriger Krieg, the 30-year war that happened here in Germany, and that there was like a collective trauma through this 30 years of war, obviously, that impacted people on such a level that it would still resonate up to today, and it would be one of the root causes of functioning, of obeying, of this discipline, because that supposedly was the only way to survive at those times. So I'm just that just came to my mind when you brought up the different ways that history has been steered and things have been introduced in our lives, and even down to beer. Like I had never thought about that really, and it's super interesting to me, and to put it in relation with with history and with other collective traumas and things that have been installed in our lives in order to manipulate and oftentimes divide us. It's very interesting to come to that awareness.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. This air conditioner is making me cough. So, but without air conditioner, it's hot. Too hot. I was just outside and I got hot. So, where are we at? You guys say something interesting while I was gone?
Yeah, well, Dennis was talking about the German psyche while you were gone, which was very interesting, and preemptive obedience and like where that might have come from in the German psyche. I think it's cool. I think all of that's well and good, except for you need good leadership. If you have people who are into obedience, I mean, I think that everyone working together is potentially a really powerful thing, and it served Germany really well at certain points in the past, and certain points now. I mean, there's things about the German psyche that are really admirable. You guys are fantastic engineers, but
and your trains are on time.
and your trains are
It's true, yeah, like
on Mexico time.
it's true, like to kind of balance that out. That would really be the thing, to have that ability of working as one, and of really tapping into a potential not only for yourself, but also collectively, or with your tribe, or with the people around you, with your community, and yet to retain that ability of thinking critically, of reevaluating, and of not letting others with bad motives taking over, and making and using you.
Yep, for sure, for sure.
So what's the best way to get started with beer making in your own home?
Beer making in your own home. I mean, I would find a good book, good recipes. The book that I was talking about,
Which is?
Sacred Herbal Healing Beers. Definitely recommend it to everybody. It's super interesting. Confirms the shit that I'm saying. And yeah, it's a source for that. And it has really cool recipes in the back. Like, not just about brewing your own drinks, but also brewing medicinal drinks. And beyond that, brewing psychedelics, which was one of the most interesting things.
So wait, that's where we're talking about berserkers, is that psychedelics made them super strong.
Yeah, I don't know what the berserkers were using. It might have been like Amanita muscaria, or some kind of tea, or some kind of brew out of that. But there's definitely psychedelics that you can make that you use, like something like mandrake, or I know there's another one that's hensbane. I know another one is yarrow. Like, those are the main psychoactive ingredients, and by brewing it in a particular way, like by just putting that in your brew, like that in your wort. I know another one. What's the name of that stuff?
Yeah, I was gonna question, because some of those are not like psychedelic by nature.
Right, like yarrow.
Yeah.
Right, but then there's these recipes in the back of that book that are really cool for psychedelic.
But sometimes combining two different herbs can create something different.
Right, there might be a couple herbs, and it might be something about the process of extracting something in it through alcohol that can't be done in another way. Or maybe, yeah, I don't know the exact science of it, but there's like these psychedelic / highly inebriating beers in the back of the book, the recipes for it, which is really interesting, and it goes to like European shamanism and really how deep and sacred alcohol was in Europe, and like the whole thing about like potions, like giving magical powers, right? This drink with all these different things, and it has this whole complex brewing process and this ritual around it, right? It's like,
I definitely want to get into making more potions when I get more stable home base. Because...
Sorry.
Huh?
Absinthe come to my mind. That's
absinthe.
Yeah.
Yes, absinthe is still is an excellent example of that. Yeah, where absinthe the wormwood in it can have psychedelic properties.
But see, in Europe now, like my family, my grandma, whatever, my grandma is no longer with us, but when she was, they would make potions out of vodka and putting herbs in it, or fruit, or vegetables. Yeah. I mean, not usually vegetables, but fruit.
It's not really rocket science.
Not really. But or amber. So my grandma used to make this amber extract, and it was supposed to be good for topical as well as internal.
That sounds really cool.
We do have some comments.
She's passed, so you can do it when you're dead.
We do have a comment from James Ford, Truth Today, saying behaviorism and social conditioning. People are trained to behave good or bad according to the ritual rule in place of acting from the five senses and natural understanding of a choice. And Rodane is answering, big up to Jamaica. Anyway, lockdown is going on in Jamaica. Everybody have to stay home. Big fines for people just stepping out of their front yard. So, hang in there, Rodane. Him say, all we need is nature and lost arts. So thank you guys for chiming in and for being with us at this time.
Yeah, that's what I want to go back to, making potions and ferments.
Yeah. Lost art.
Magical things.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it ties in a lot of things, like you're saying, fermentation and foraging, and wild crafting, wild herbs, and all that sort of thing. Yeah, it's folk medicine.
Being
Because
aware of what nature offers, right?
like tell them your eye story,
So what?
the eye story.
Oh, yeah. So I had this eye infection and it wouldn't go away for 3 months. So I stopped and I said, what would like a real Eastern European person do? And so I did look it up to see if it was going to kill me, but it wouldn't. So I tried it and I took an eye wash cup and I filled it with straight vodka and I put it against my eyeball and it tilted my head. And it was the worst pain I ever have felt in my entire life. But the eye infection was gone the next day. And the pain only lasted like 3 to 4 minutes at the most, like 1 minute of intense pain and then just like a little stinging. That's
Amazing.
it.
So the pain was gone and the eye was gone too, right?
No, the eye is still there. But so the eye infection caused my eye to tear and it was causing like red streaks on my face because there were always tears on my face for months. So it was like creating like this like damaged skin. And so I was desperate.
Well, that brings up
I don't know
memories.
if I recommend it. It was really painful. I thought I was gonna die for at least a minute.
But it worked. Super Polish.
Totally worked.
I'm not even surprised that it worked.
Totally worked. But I literally thought I was gonna lose an eyeball for at least a minute. About a minute.
You know what I was going to say is, George Washington, the first president, he put down something called the Whiskey Rebellion, and what that was a lot of the sharecroppers in the like the Hudson Valley area, because they grew so much stuff, but they couldn't store their the grains and so forth. They turned them into whiskey, and that was really a commodity then that everybody could trade and exchange for other things. But of course, there were other powers that be that wanted to get rid of that. I'm wondering, with Acapulco and this tropical area that we have all these different exotic fruits and stuff like that. Being able to ferment those things.
We make
I'm thinking the first thing that comes to mind is like mangoes.
mangoes. That's right. Mangoes and coconut water.
Mangoes and like some like pine boughs and all kinds of things. Those like piney terpenes and mangoes. I've been eating a bunch of mangoes because it reminds me of back home. It tastes like pine trees, so I really like them. So the first thing I'm thinking of is like, ooh, let's do like a woodsy mango beer wine. Yeah, let's
With a little vanilla or something.
put some vanilla.
I want to
in there,
put vanilla in everything, just so you guys know.
I mean, we could do a classic beer that's just not gonna. I mean, some people the gluten messes with them, but for me, it's like I'd feel great.
What
Like,
if
I
we made
love
it out
dark
of
beers.
corn?
We could do that too.
It's local, it's cheap, it's everywhere.
Yeah,
You could even make corn malt.
we could make corn malt. I'm not sure how good something based in corn would turn out, but we can do it.
Put
I
a
believe in
crap
us.
ton of herbs in it. It'll taste great.
It's true. It is true. Yeah. So it's like it's this really cool tradition, and it also really brings people together as well. Like that was one of the things that was really surprising to me. It's actually so powerful that it's really hidden in plain sight, right? Because without even meaning to, alcohol is what people turn to get people together, right? To party and all that in the first
Or
place
cucumber
because it
water.
has such a. If you're at Agnieszka's house, sorry, you might be served cucumber water.
Dennis approves.
I mean, hey, you still give me booze for my morning coffee.
That's
So
true. I do give you booze for your morning. But that's because you asked for it and I have a cafe.
James Ford is adding, hot toddies are a sure cure for flu and colds. Whiskey, lemon,
Right.
cloves and sugar. Hot water between 1 and 12 will do it.
Hey, what about that German drink, Dennis? You know where they take a chunk of sugar and then they pour the hot alcohol over top of the sugar? You know what that is? From the market, like Christmas market.
Oh, sugar? You mean Glühwein?
Probably.
That's like
like it.
You know, what was one of my favorite things was mulled wine. Oh my God. There was one day in the Czech Republic. It was just incredible. Everyone was serving mulled wine.
In the winter.
To get stuck in a non-European country during global human lockdown. I really wanted to be in Russia right now, but yeah, it's looking like I'm picking between America and Mexico at this point. But
It's not even a choice.
but yeah, mulled wine, like spiced wine with certain herbs in there that's heated up and warm on a cold day. Woo!
Yeah, that's
So
traditional here
good.
too.
And you know how good that would be here because the spices are so fresh in Mexico, like the cinnamon and
But would people
Anyway,
want to drink it hot?
sorry.
That's something like I associate with, Christmas, the Christmas markets, which are now banned, by the way. That's like, snow is falling, it's all cold, and people, like they're going out in the town center, and there's all these traditional little shacks where, people sell traditional sweets and foods, and then you just stand close by each other, but it's freezing, and then people get the Glühwein, glowing wine, yeah, which is like a wine with alcohol and cloves, I guess, is in it as well, and cinnamon or different spices. And so that would be the tradition. That's like, for people to get warm, basically, and to be able to stay outside.
Yeah,
I was wondering if that
the
is,
alcohol opens up your capillaries and gets blood back to your skin and gives you that warm feeling. Yeah.
I wonder if that would be a hit in Mexico.
Well, so at night when there are beach parties, it gets kind of cold at this time of year because it's quite windy. And so men wear t-shirts. So it's really cold. And
Men sometimes wear a t-shirt.
men put on a shirt. In Mexico, men don't wear shirts. So when a man wears a shirt, that Michael entertains us by putting on a shirt, but he does it for like civilization's sake. But
Thank you for preserving our civilization, Michael.
but
It's that preemptive obedience.
yeah, so the warm wine, I think warm wine would be good on the beach
Okay.
when
'Cause
it's windy.
I remember hearing back in Jamaica, hearing about a guy who opened a German-style bakery and started to bake German bread, and it wouldn't last long. I'm not sure if it was because of the bread, if it was because of him, or because of the location. I mean, there can be many factors, but it just I thought about that earlier, Mike, when you mentioned bringing stuff to brew beer down to Mexico. Because sometimes it seems you have a great idea and you have a great product, but then just the people around you, don't appreciate it or are not ready for it, or they have a different taste and so that's something I remembered earlier. And Rodain was putting another comment saying fermentation is an essential part to our development as humans. It is present in cultures all over the world. Yeah, very much so, I would say.
Agreed. Yeah.
And James is saying, I've heard spicy food and hot liquids bring the body temperature down? ?
Yeah, that's the story, that you warm up and then you feel warm and then you adjust more to the warm things and you don't feel as warm. I don't know if that made sense, James.
I don't know, but I can say that after living in Acapulco for 5-6 years, I am definitely acclimated to the environment here. I mean, if it drops a few degrees, I can tell. I actually feel cold now when it gets into the lower 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that never happened before for me.
If I get down here, I'm definitely gonna have to live next to a mountain or somewhere that gets cold. Like it for like the first month, it's like, oh, this is really cool, and then the sun's beating down, and I'm like,
When does the summer end?
where's an ice pool? Yeah, I need to find myself to like a bunch of snow to flop down and roll around.
I was thinking yesterday, I'm like, okay, look, we've had like 4 months of summer. Like, is this it? Like, are we gonna is this gonna stop?
Does it ever end?
okay, it's nice weather every day, but is it like every day?
It's usually the first week of June where we'll have our first rainstorm, and then
First week of June, you can be cold. See?
No, you can't be cold. You can be wet, but you're still going to be hot. It's
Actually,
hot, or it's hot and wet.
Probably, yeah.
I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning and stepped outside and it was cold last night. Like actually cold. Like I felt like I needed a sweater. At 7 it was no longer cold, but at 5 it was cold.
I like to swim. I like to break holes in my pond on my property in Oregon, and then break holes in the ice. I take my axe
And then jump in.
and then jump in.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And then being down here, yeah, I don't want to lose all of that environmental conditioning. I worked hard for that. Wim
You
Hof
can-
method stuff.
It doesn't matter. Wim Hof can live anywhere and still be strong.
You can. I guess I just have
Oh.
to do extreme heat exposure stuff down here. I'll like build myself a sauna and just like live in it.
Well, that's the thing with altitude. Altitude can turn you into the different environments. So like as you go higher, you can go back into different climates. And certainly like Mexico City, which is at over 8,000 feet, and some of the other places, you can still get snow
Right.
So
in
is,
Right.
Mexico.
is
So-
there a kind of tendency in terms of the preparation and the ways people deal with or make alcohol according to their environment, to the environmental conditions?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like the type of drink that you can create depends on the herbs that are local to you. So, like there's sake, rice wine. Rice wine doesn't really exist in Europe. There's like all sorts of interesting local things, stuff made out of palm sap and right every sort of medium where every catalyst for the bacteria to eat, like every sort of food source for the bacteria, it all has its side effects in it as well. So, it has its own taste and it has its own properties that'll do. Like drinking tequila or mezcal is real different than beer, and that's real different than whiskey, that's real different than wine, right? It all has its own special effect. It all gives you a special superpower.
So I had to look this up because this is an alcohol I heard about on the radio show, but I didn't really remember the name. But apparently, in the rainforests of Peru, locals chew yucca and spit the masticated root into jars for fermentation. In the radio show, they were spitting it into an empty canoe, making a canoe worth of alcohol for the village.
That sounds like a place I'd like to be.
The alcoholic from spit.
No,
The alcoholic
the canoe.
beverage is a staple called masato. Masato. Yes.
Masato. A canoe worth of Masato. Yeah, I'd be super down.
I don't know.
You
I
get
have a
enough
question,
alcohol in it and it'll just kill whatever bad bacteria.
but it's made out of spit.
Yeah, but it'll be all the good bacteria from the
The
spit.
liquid
Probably
in
be
it
yeah.
is spit.
That could be a niche market for your pond. Back in Oregon, you could rent out a few of those canoes full of stuff, and people would come in half an
It,
hour.
not spit, and then I'll drink it.
Guys, you guys want some Peruvian spit drink? Like it's so fire, I promise. It's this
$1
traditional.
million.
It's
It's
traditional.
like it's an immune booster, man. Immune system booster when you,
Hey, you know
suck
what?
up everybody's
It's
spit.
great for pulmonary infections.
Pulmonary infection.
It's the latest protocol for the
I-
COVID.
Not certified by the FDA, guys.
No, nobody wants that stuff.
What?
Certified by the FDA.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forget my audience.
Yeah.
Hey, not certified by the FBI. Hey, guys. Yeah, buy it.
Yay, let's do it.
Yeah. Put that on my shit. Not certified.
Well, does our audience have any more questions for Mr. Wizard?
Hold on. Don't see nothing as yet.
Or does my co-hosts?
Well, what are your plans for the future? You said you're pondering moving down to Mexico. Is brewing going to be continue to be a part of your life down here if that happens?
Is brewing?
Mhm.
Ideally, yeah, for sure. I mean, moving down here, the first thing that the first thought on my mind is getting cookware that's not plastic, because a lot of people like eat off of plastic and that sort of thing. So I was thinking about glass, imported wine. Yeah, and
We
like
need to talk
cookware
about this.
for sure. How to make my own bread down here, because that's something I like, but at the same time I don't want like enriched flour, like bleached enriched flour, that to be something that I'm eating every day with the tortillas and that sort of thing. So like sourcing my own food, that's a big deal to me. I really want if I come down here, well, no matter what I do, I want a homestead where I'm growing my food, and then this is just a side product of that, right? Like if you're actually like running a large scale operation where you're providing enough food for yourself and your community, then yeah, some of it you'll have extra, some of it, you have extra grains, you know what to do with it, but
Fermented.
ferment it, yeah, turn that shit into a party. But so I'll either stay up in the States or come down here essentially, and hopefully UK didn't just set a precedent for the rest of the world shutting down their borders and saying it's illegal to leave the country.
Which
And
just
yeah,
happened with England.
yeah, there's a law that is about to go into effect. This woman who said she just escaped from the UK, who's down there, she was telling me that. And so, yeah, I don't want to get trapped in the States, and I have some logistics to look at, but I might sell my stuff and come down here and just take my capital, start a homestead down here, and a part of that would definitely be fermenting. If I'm holding out and the rest of the world's.
And the Mexicans have these great ceramic crocks that are perfect for fermenting with lids. So,
Nice.
Yeah. It's easy to get.
Yeah.
And
But if I'm like making my last stand at my little homestead, not interacting too much with the world that's going the way that it's going into, if I'm just gonna be like a little outlaw ranch, then I will definitely have stocks and stocks
For beer.
of all kinds of alcohol. I'll put like 10K into Spanish wine and just.
Spanish wine.
Yep.
From your friends from the village.
Maybe.
Or just buy grapes and make it.
Yeah, or I'll plant grapes. I'll do both. I'll have a bunch of alcohol imported in just huge stores. My plan is to drink happily for the rest of my life in Mexico. But don't. Yeah, all I really learned was that alcohol works well with my body and is really cool for me, especially red wine. And it brings out some cool aspects of my personality, and it's not as bad as everybody says it is. So, there's all sorts of things that, for all different reasons, might work better for some people's bodies and might not work as much for others. But it's something that's worth exploring. It's really cool, has a really cool energy, brings people together, can inspire you, open you up, make you feel free, and and it can be totally medicinal as well, done right. Traditional, medicinal, bringing us together, connecting us to the earth. That's a potential for alcohol. So don't let cheap alcohol brands ruin the tradition and convince you that it's poison, because everything is poison if they let it. Take opium versus like heroin and morphine and all the different toxins that are synthesized out of it, right? It's a plant to begin with.
So for the moments when the shit hits the fan, we keep an extra little barrel buried somewhere with a berserker drink.
Hell yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, you got it, dude. You got it. Just casks of that shit, and then like break in case of emergency, you just like break the barrel and glug. All right, boys, come on, get there, and then
we have a question from
for the final battle for Ragnarok, right?
With a battle axe. Rodanian asking any good book suggestions or learning sources. I have The Art of Fermentation. I guess that's the title you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I believe that's one of the ones that I would recommend. I think that's a good one. The one that really got me on this mindset is Sacred Herbal Healing Beers. That's a really, really cool book. Talks about the traditions and that aspect, and it has some recipes in it. And I've never seen a recipe for a psychedelic beer outside of that book. So
nice.
I haven't made them yet, unfortunately, but I would love to. I would love to compare notes with some people who've made like mandrake root beer and like trip doing witchy pagan stuff with that.
And then James is asking, so I assume fruit and vegetables can be fermented, preserved with a low alcohol content that does not necessarily get one
Drunk.
Inebriated?
Inebriated.
Inebriated. Yeah, sorry.
Right.
Yes, that's possible as well. It's
Right.
a different type of fermentation for alcohol versus regular.
For sure. And yeah, like alcohol depends on how you use it. You can definitely use it in a toxic way, but I think that you can drink responsibly and it's worthwhile to make your own booze. Like,
I think my grandma made alcohol plums where she pickled the plums in alcohol and served it for like desserts and parties and stuff.
that sounds delicious. European recipes are like something else. There's lots of Poles up in my life for some reason back where I'm from, and yes, like fruit vodkas and all kinds of ridiculous, so good.
Yeah, fruit vodkas, definitely.
Yeah, some of these recipes, it's like, damn, you guys, like, why don't you sell this? Like, why don't you?
Like fruit pierogies.
Come on, I'll buy this, please. I've never had a fruit pierogi.
Oh, those are good. I wonder what mango pierogies would be like with cinnamon.
I'd try that.
Anyway, I think we should close down this popsicle stand because we're just rambling on random shit now. Unless
Well, this was definitely an interesting topic. I learned a great deal.
Yes.
And really appreciate our audience's time and attention on this one. And hopefully it was very helpful and useful. Certainly give you a new perspective on what you might be able to do in your own kitchen or backyard or basement when it comes to things that you might be able to utilize to make your life that much better.
And I'm sure you could hire Jack for a personal consultation if you have questions.
Absolutely. That's definitely something else that could be done.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jack, for coming on. It really, within this hour and a half that we're talking right now, it has certainly, bring to my awareness aspects of beer, brewing, alcohol that, I have never really considered before. And that's, I really appreciate that because it's an eye opener and it's widening my horizon. So, and Agnieszka, so if need be one time, who knows, certainly if that's the thing available and if that promises to heal, then certainly I can see the possibility of making use of that too.
What? All right.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we will bid adieu and look forward to our next. So are we still looking for the breatharian to come on board?
He
Or
hasn't
is that
gotten back to me, so we can't promise a breatharian for next week, but we'll promise something else cool for next week.
And we tell you about
Okey-dokey.
that Monday.
Yeah, we'll tell you about it Monday.
Stay tuned for our teaser show on Monday then.
Yeah, man. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Jack.